Hi everyone, this is Patrick Walker with Defensive Mechanics. Today we're going to talk about IDPA and what people can get out of it. Hi, what's your name and why do you shoot IDPA?
I'm Brian. I shoot IDPA because it's just an adrenaline rush. You get out there, you learn about what you and your gun and yourself can do when you're under duress. You really see how you're going to react in a real situation when you've got people that you care about in front of you and you're trying to protect them.
So for those of you who don't know about IDPA, it stands for International Defensive Pistol Association. You can probably guess from the name that IDPA competitions revolve around defensive situations with a handgun or possibly a long gun. Now those are different than other types of competitions that like USPSA, IPSC, 3-gun. They're no more about run and gun and less about cover, concealment, and defensive tactics. So now, some people think that some of the rules are either too strict or unnecessary, and some of them just aren't tactically sound. And if you've ever been to an IDPA match, I'm sure you've heard someone say, well, I sure wouldn't do it that way in a real gunfight or something like that. Well, I hate to break it to those people, but IDPA is a form of competition. And it's meant that they've done those rule changes to make the playing ground as level as possible between the competitors. Now, some people are upset about this and feel the organization has gotten away from its roots. But like any organization, if you don't like it, either leave or figure out what you really want to get from it and make it work for you. Now, I myself have been frustrated and didn't agree with some of the rule changes over the years, but I decided that I would take what I wanted to get out of the experience. And so that's what I really encourage others to do also, because I still think it's a valuable form of competition. Now to clarify, I'll talk about different ways that you can use the experience that is IDPA. So first, let's get training out of the way. In my opinion, IDPA is not the place to train defensive handgun skills. Now, some of you may be confused by my statement, so let's clarify things. There's a difference between training and practice. Some people kind of lump them together, but training is typically performed when someone is teaching you a skill. Now, a keyword there, teaching. So IDPA is not the place that's intended to be taught at. You should already come to an IDPA match knowing how to draw, fire, manipulate your firearm. Sure, you can take away different tips and practice maybe some different things as long as they're safe, but bottom line, IDPA is not training. So, IDPA for practice. I think IDPA is a great place to practice your defensive handgun skills. Hi, what's your name and why do you shoot IDPA?
My name's Glenn Moore. I don't shoot IPA for competition, but I do shoot it for practice, and it gives me practical information for the real world.
Now most, if not all matches, will give you an opportunity to practice drawing your weapon, shooting accurately, shooting from cover, movement, and firearms manipulation skills. And those are arguably the top 5 firearm skills taught by defensive handgun instructors. Also, since IDPA matches typically consist of different scenarios for each match, it's a great way of visualizing what you would do in a situation. Now, as long as you can think outside of the parameters of a particular stage, you could really see how this could be applied in real life. And this is a part of crucial mindset practice. A good example of this is comparing an IDPA scenario that starts with you sitting at a table in a restaurant with that of a table in your favorite restaurant in real life. So the next time you go into a restaurant, 1, pick the best seat in reference to your entrance and exits. 2, catalog your concealment and cover options that you have in the restaurant. And 3, by thinking about how you would react in an active shooter situation with either force or predetermining and communicating with your family the escape plan if something like this happens. So, with that being said, if you go into an IDPA match with the intent of practicing those skills, you really shouldn't worry about your score. Because typically when people worry about their score, which is focused around time in IDPA, people tend to rush their shots, jerk that trigger, and your accuracy suffers. So when you're treating it as practice, you can take your time to improve those skills like trigger control, reloads, use of cover, target prioritization. Worrying about time, especially for new shooters, creates sloppy habits and makes them harder to correct down the road. Now, when I first started IDPA, I got caught up in the competition aspect like a lot of people do, and let myself get saddled with some pretty bad habits like jerking the shit out of the trigger to get faster hits, but my accuracy was suffering, and so your score goes down. So I would also extend too far past cover or crowd it, either of which is really a poor tactical habit. So because of those habits, I just couldn't seem to break out of the middle of the pack, and I was getting frustrated. And at this time, IDPA was changing up some of its rules, a few of which I just did not agree with whatsoever. So I just kind of took a time out from IDPA for a while and started shooting some other competitions, USPSA, 3-gun. But I found that I really, really missed that mindset training with those scenarios that you just don't get. And I missed the practice of shooting behind cover and concealment. And that's when I kind of realized that I needed to figure out what I really wanted to get out of IDPA. And so I came back to it with a fresh perspective. And I realized that when I wanted to practice, I could just slow down and practice my fundamentals. But when I wanted to compete, I could speed up a little bit and really go for it. But I just had to kind of choose. So when you're practicing, don't worry so much about the rules or score, but be safe. Because not following the safety rules is going to cause your practice to get cut pretty short when you get disqualified if you're doing unsafe things. So there's nothing to say that you can't even choose practicing on one stage of a match and competing in another. I've come up to some IDPA stages at a local match that I thought were overly complicated and probably pretty unrealistic. And I decided that I was just going to be safe and shoot it the way I would shoot it and treat it the way I would shoot it in a more real life type situation. Now, with that being said, if you're going to do that, it would certainly be a good idea to talk to the safety officer and let them know your intentions. Most of the guys are pretty cool about that. And let them know you understand the scenario, you're going to follow all the safety rules, you know the boundaries, you're not going to draw unsafely. And just let them know you fully understand that you're probably going to get penalized because you're going to do something out of order or not the way that the stage was intended to shoot. And that's okay, just as long as you let them know. Tell them, if you want, tell them, don't even keep score. I just want to shoot this the way I want to shoot this. Now, you're probably only going to be able to do that at local matches, so just keep that in mind, no regional or state matches. One thing I also want to important to mention that I believe that people should carry their carry guns at an IDPA match, especially if you're using it for practice. It does you no good to use a different gun and holster setup than you carry on a regular basis if that's what you're going there to practice. You're not going to have the same muscle memory as you would use your true concealed carry gear. So I know in the beginning I started out like probably a lot of people with an oversized vest that I never wore outside of a match, and guns and pouches and stuff that I didn't carry on a concealed basis. Since then, since I'm using it more for practice now, I use my everyday carry gun and the pouches and magazines I carry on a regular basis. Now, when my goal is competing, then I just don't get hung up on those rules that I may disagree with. Because you're there to compete. You got to follow the rules. Bottom line, just follow the rules if you want to compete. So use it as a safe practice session or follow the rules and compete. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoy this video, click on the thumbs up if you want to hear more from me, or subscribe to my channel. And remember, mindset, marksmanship, mechanics, and only by paying attention to all three attributes can you become a superior warrior.